Victorian London, the population was exploding and the streets were crammed, perfect conditions for a boy pickpocket to rob you without you even noticing. Victorian pickpocketing was well organized, and in many cases it started with training children from as young as 5. Henry Mayhew, the great Victorian journalist, documented the whole setup in his landmark work, London Labour and the London Poor. Children were recruited very young, sometimes from the streets, sometimes sold into it by their own desperate parents. These new recruits didn't just get sent out to steal and get caught straight away, they were trained properly, sometimes for years. In Manchester, one of the most notorious trainers was a woman known only as Cabbage-Annie, operating out of a lodging house in Charter Street, where at any given time around a dozen lads were being put through their paces. The training method was a coat hung on a wall, with a bell stitched to it. The trainee had to reach in and remove a handkerchief without the bell ringing. Only when you could do it perfectly, quietly, every time, were you considered ready for the streets. In some schools the training went even further, the floor was covered in broken pottery and stones, and the recruits had to learn to move in wooden-soled clogs without making a sound. The theory was, if you could do it on broken crockery in clogs, you could do it anywhere. Now, what were they actually after? You might think cash, but the big prize for most Victorian pickpockets was the handkerchief. Gentlemen carried large, expensive, elaborately decorated silk handkerchiefs, known in criminal slang as fogels. These were easy to steal and highly prized on the black market. There was even a whole vocabulary for different types of fogel. A blue silk one was a watersman, white and green was a randlesman, and the most valuable of all, black fogels, the mourning handkerchiefs worn during bereavement. Pickpockets themselves were known as breech buzzers, and the act of dipping into a pocket was called buzzing. At the top of the pickpocketing hierarchy sat what Victorians called the swell mob. These weren't scruffy urchins, these were well-dressed, well-spoken thieves who looked indistinguishable from respectable young gentlemen, puffing cigars, wearing fashionable clothes, dripping with jewelry. The swell mob operated anywhere there was a decent-sized crowd, theatres, fairs, funerals, even public hangings. Before 1829, there was no professional police force in England at all. Even after Robert Peel's Metropolitan Police Act changed that, the courts were left struggling trying to deal with multitudes of child criminals who genuinely didn't fear the law. The primary punishment was transportation, shipping children to the penal colonies in Australia. Courts thought it would break up criminal networks and terrify young pickpockets into going straight. It didn't, as child pickpockets largely didn't fear transportation, and some actively welcomed it, at least it got them out of the slums. Until the Juvenile Offenders Act of 1847, children were tried as adults. Those not transported faced hard labor, breaking rocks in prison yards, or walking treadmills for hours. Over 100 children in Victorian England were sentenced to death. The system didn't protect these children, it created the conditions that turned them into criminals in the first place: poverty, no compulsory schooling, no social safety net, and then punished them viciously for the results.